Hello there, welcome back to Leading Our Own Way. I'm your host, Andrew White. I am so excited to present today's guest. She is a lady from Scotland, currently living in Austin, Texas. She's relocated her family just for a few years for a brand new adventure. She is called Karen Leigh. She is a podcast host for a show called Spirit, Mind, and Soul. She is done a lot of training herself into the NLP, Neuro Linguistics program. I can't even say it right. It's a tongue twister. She's an amazing person who's been on a hell of a journey from her childhood, from finding out, going through some domestic violence in her childhood, understanding the person she really is growing up, has two wonderful children. And we delve deep into limited beliefs, low self-esteem, some of the things she's all encountered herself, and the darkness that she's pulled herself from, and now is a single mother thriving in the world. And she's going to explain how she leads her own way. Some snippets that I didn't show on the interview, and I wished I had, but I wanted to share with you today. Here's Karen, and she posts a little quote here that I'll read out to you. Here to remind you just how worthy you are of the life you dream about. A beautiful saying from her Instagram, at I am Karen Leigh, Leigh. Another one is one of the most empowering breakthroughs is to realize we get to choose our beliefs about ourselves, other people, the world. So, and she has a website there as well, iamkarenleigh.com. And another one, any emotions that arise are just what we need in that moment for our growth. Well, we definitely grow on this episode. We learn a lot. I learn a lot from Karen. I know you will too. So please tune in. We've got 21 seconds of an intro, and then we'll get straight to Karen. Beautiful person, beautiful soul, and we have a great chat. So I hope you enjoy the episode. Take care. Welcome to Leading Our Own Way. I'm your host, Andrew White, and this is the podcast that unveils captivating narratives of resilience and personal triumph. This podcast is for anyone seeking inspiration and insights on overcoming life's challenges. Follow and subscribe, and then we can lead together forever. Karen, thank you for joining on Leading Our Own Way. It's such a pleasure to have you here. And, I'm so privileged because it was kind of a random way of meeting each other. And I'm so grateful that you responded to my request, because I came across your profile on the internet, and we are from the same area, Great Britain, maybe not the same country. And I think I was connected to you because I saw how you changed your life going and moving to another country. And I've done something very, very similar myself many, many, many years ago with my family. And I think that's what drew me to you. And I wanted to know more. But before we get into the episode, I want to say thank you. And, how are you today, Karen?
Thank you so much. I know it was random, and the same when obviously we were talking and you're UK and went over to Australia, and it's nice to connect with people who have similar journeys, and very random, but I'm glad that you got in touch and reached out. I'm doing
Yeah,
well,
and
thank you.
I'm so grateful that you're here and have agreed to come on, because you do have a journey you've been on. But before we get into your journey, what is your purpose? How are you leading your own way today?
I think my purpose is the hardships and challenges that I've overcome in life, which we'll touch on later.
Hmm.
And then, the things that helped me, the tools, the techniques, mindset, tips, everything that helped me, I want to share that with other people. I think there's an injustice that people just feel stuck and they don't know what step to take next or what direction to go in. So yeah, I feel that's how I can do my bit, is by helping share what helped me overcome my hardships and challenges in life.
Yeah, okay. All right. So where are you in the world now then?
Location, I'm in Texas right
Yep.
now. I'm from Scotland,
Hmm.
Glasgow. Currently in Texas, for now. Yeah, we'll go back to Scotland, but we're here for now.
What was the purpose of the move to Texas then?
Adventure.
Oh, I
It
like
really
it.
was. It was, I really have such a strong sense of we are only going to be us once, and we need to make the most of this one life that we have. Um, Yeah, I've always been taking my kids on road trips. Every year we'd go on an adventure somewhere, and this is just a bigger and better and longer adventure.
Yeah, because there's not many people I think would just lift up their families
I know. Yeah.
and move to another place. One, because of, I suppose, guts. Confidence is probably the wrong word, but that stepping over the line,
Hmm.
it's too hard. What what made it easier for? I mean, you've just mentioned you do trips all the time, but that, like you just said,
Hmm.
it's a much bigger
Yeah,
one.
a big
How did
move.
that make it easy? What made it easy to do that, or was there a process to
It
it?
was definitely, it does take confidence and it takes self-belief, which is something that I didn't
Mm,
have for such a long time. And when you find that self-belief that's in us all, when you find that confidence that, that you are capable as well of just doing it.
mhm.
Yeah, I think it was so it did take time for me to come to a place where I felt the belief that I could just take my kids. I'm a single mum as well, so I'm here with my kids. It's me and my kids. I have family here, so that does help.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think it takes time. You need to work on whatever you feel are the blocks, what's holding you back. So yeah, I was not, I would never have done something like this 10 years ago.
Yeah. And how are the family settling into Texas now, and how they've
I mean,
adapted to the Texas lifestyle with all the barbecues and
yeah, my kids are thriving here. We
oh,
actually came here last year for 2 months just well, partly to see family and just to spend some time in the summer here. But they were just thriving here. And I did come here thinking I'll suss it out and see what I think. And yeah, I went home and put my house in the market and gave my belongings away. And now we're here. Now we're back. 7 months later, we're back here.
yeah, that's amazing. I've been to Texas. I've been to Fort Worth and Dallas, and
Oh,
I
I love
such a
those places. We've been
yeah,
there
I
too.
do. I love Fort Worth. That cute little city. It
Yeah.
was awesome. I stayed in a little. We went to I went to watch the college finals there, basketball in 2014.
Hmm.
Beautiful spot. Love it. There was a little. I remember there was a little free bus that used to drive around Fort Worth, and there was a bar there. If you drank all the beers and you did every single one, eventually you got your name up on a. I think it was a
Oh,
disc.
wow.
I don't know. I can't remember. I don't
Did
know.
you get that?
I wasn't there long enough. They'd
Oh,
limit you to so many per night.
of
So
course.
it,
Yeah.
yeah, they would. So otherwise, you'd probably, kill yourself. So
Yeah.
they would limit you. But I thought it was a good idea. I suppose that just made the locals keep going back, I suppose.
Yeah.
Um, Going to that part where you said about, when you go home, people always have those holiday blues, don't they? "Oh, I want to go
Mm,
back. I'm going to do something. Um, and then it disappears and then
yes.
goes into thin air. I do believe when people make such a drastic change in their life, they've not necessarily hit a crisis point, but something's happened in their life for them
Hmm.
to make that jump, have more motivation, have more belief, confidence, as you mentioned earlier. Um, Putting the house on the market. Let's discuss that bit because
Hmm.
this might be nothing for you. I don't know.
It was. No, it
I've
was.
never
It
put
was.
my house on the market to move. I have moved a few
Hmm.
times, but I never had a house. And I was younger and I didn't have kids. You're
Hmm.
the first person I've come across who've done this. So talk to us about putting the house on the market.
Hmm.
Talk about that part of the journey.
Hmm. So I think the seed was planted in 2020. Obviously, we all know what happened in 2020.
Yeah.
And it made me, it gave me, like I owned my home, single mom with my kids, and I was doing fine. I didn't have any financial worries or anything like that. We were
Hmm.
just happy, content living our lives. And in 2020 hit, and my circumstances at the time, and not being able to work, I was actually at university as well, just finishing my degree. And I felt, that sense of security that I thought I had from owning my home and being able to work
Hmm.
was taken away from me.
Yeah.
And it made me realize that it was a false sense of security. Owning it can be taken away from me at any point. And thankfully it didn't get that bad and everything was fine.
Hmm.
But it did plant the seed and it made me question that false sense of security and how so many of us strive to tick that box of homeowner
Hmm.
because we think it's a safe option and secure. And I think
Hmm.
for me, 2020 made me realize there's really no security. So
Yeah.
you might as well take the risk, however scary that might be,
Yeah.
because there's no safe option really. I think 2020 proved that.
You're
So
right.
that definitely planted the seed for me.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Because I think about that in terms of jobs. I think in terms of whatever it may be. Um, you're right. I even think about if I was to make a big purchase now, or is it going to change in 2 years' time? Are we going to go through a pandemic? You know, I bought a car many years ago and I was pretty well, or, not well off, but I was
Mhm.
doing well financially, like I said. And I never worried about the car. And then now I worry about the car because,
Mhm.
things have changed
Yeah.
financially. We don't have a spare penny at the end of the month anymore, whereas we used to have $2,000 spare every
Yeah.
fortnight. And now we haven't got anything because the interest rates have gone up. So you're
Yeah.
right, it is scary and things have changed. And yeah, I don't know. Could I still sell my house though? I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think I actually wanted to own nothing. I actually just
Mm,
started to think it's like I say, 2020. Don't want to keep talking about that, but
yeah,
it just made me realize, you think when you own things and they're yours, and it made me think I'm in a situation now where if this is ongoing and this continues for years, I could actually have my house. It was a possibility which it never was before.
yeah.
So it kind of made me think I don't want that. I would rather feel free.
Mm,
And I guess I mean, it took, 3 years because it was 3 years later that I did finally sell up. So it probably took some time to process and
yeah,
come to terms with that in my mind before I actually made the big move. But
yeah.
you'd mentioned earlier, Andrew, you said, you get the holiday blues, you're in the moment and you think this is amazing and sunshine and the lifestyle. And then you go home and you go back to reality and back to normal.
Like most
I
people.
I actually made a conscious choice when I was here, because I was here for 7 weeks last summer, and I made a conscious choice of looking at my children and seeing how happy they were and the lifestyle, the community spirit, and being out on the street playing in the evenings with the other kids, which we just don't do back home. I
Yeah,
think probably we did as children, but
yeah,
my children didn't. That just
yeah.
isn't the way anymore.
It's not, is it?
And being in the pool every day in the summer, and yeah, and I remember just how happy I felt, how that feeling of peace that I
Yes.
felt.
Yeah.
And the one thing when I would go on evening walks, which I still do now, there's a lovely little walkway here where I go for an evening walk. And last year, every night I would think, don't go home and just settle back into that, because that
Yeah.
I knew that that could happen because I
Yeah.
loved my home.
Yeah.
We had such a lovely loving home. Yeah, it was lovely.
Yeah.
It's not that I wanted to get away from that, but I remember thinking, don't forget how good this feels. And when I was back home and I could so easily have just went back into our daily life there, I remember
Routine.
thinking I want that back.
Yeah. And is it normalized now, or do you still feel present in that way?
That the feeling, the good feeling, or
Yeah, the walk at night. I suppose is it
oh,
taken for
I
granted anymore? You're
no,
still
it's not.
present.
Yeah, it's not. I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I go for those walks and I feel really, really grateful because I don't think we'll be here forever. So I'm just being present and lapping up every second.
So then, okay, going back to the when you've just mentioned about it's not forever. Um, will that transition back to Scotland though happen again? Will
Well,
you, you know what I mean? Like, will you go into back to that what we've just said? We don't want to ever go down again. Do
hmm
you know what I mean? Would you
I
stay there forever if you could?
um, I don't know. I think time will tell. I'm completely open now. So I knew
Mm,
when we came here, which was at end of February we came here, so it's about a month and a half.
mm,
And I knew when I was coming here, I thought, I don't know where I'm going to be this time next year. I don't know what country I'm going to be in. Really,
yeah,
I felt really open to whatever wanted to come my way. And that's a really lovely and
yeah,
freeing feeling, actually, to not know. So I definitely think I need Scotland gets about 20 days of sunshine a year, and I think I need more than that. So I definitely want to plan my life around more sunshine in my life. But my children are 10 and 11, and I think Scotland is probably where they need to be for a chunk of their childhood too,
yeah,
in the future, I think. So that's kind of our plan, is to go back. But I don't think it'll be forever either.
yeah, yeah. Well, you've set up your children in order to be more open-minded and have the confidence to
Yeah.
make those moves if they ever choose to as well, right? I guess. What were you doing for work in 2020 then, when you were going through the COVID and you then obviously realized we're not safe anymore? What were you doing for
hmm
work?
I was working in a nightclub and I was self-employed. So, and I didn't get any help from, governments, or if I didn't get furloughed or anything like that.
Yeah. Okay. And so how have you changed your life now then? What you currently working on professionally?
hmm so like I said, I was finishing my degree, and it was a year and a half. It was 2021 before the nightclubs opened, and I went back, and I had actually just finished working with, I hired a spiritual life coach because I just, like I said, 2020 made me reevaluate so much. And I was finishing this degree in business, and I thought, I don't want to work in corporate for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And that left me not knowing what I wanted to do. And when I hired a spiritual life coach, which she worked, I don't know if you know the chakra systems, if you
No.
know, no. So the energy points in the body where we hold emotions, because I felt like I'd been doing the mindset work for years and years. By this point, I had gotten myself to a good place mentally. Um, which is probably why I didn't go into corporate, and I listened to my mind saying, no, it's not actually what you want. You don't want to work in
Well,
a
I was going to
business
ask
environment
why.
like that.
Why
Sorry?
not working corporate though? That's what I was going to ask. Why you
Why
not?
didn't
Why
I?
at
Why
that
didn't I
point?
want to?
Yeah.
Because so I did previously, and then I went to university, and I actually I loved what I did. And I loved working with people and the environment. I did love that. I just didn't want to do it for the rest of my life. It was very unfulfilling for me, as much as I enjoyed it and I was
Mhm.
good at it. I didn't want to do that, for I felt there was something more, and I didn't know what that was.
Yeah. Okay. So right now then, what you doing professionally? How are
Yeah.
you helping the world?
So when I this when I did the coaching, and she pulled so much out of me. I had so many breakthroughs
Yeah.
and realizations, and I felt amazing after it. I felt like I knew myself so much better. I felt like I'd let go of so much stagnant emotional energy that wasn't serving me. And I just thought, why do people not, we're not nurtured. Why do we not, she very much encouraged me and supported me and gave me more tips and tools and everything I needed to sort of carry me through. And I really do think she changed my life massively. And I just thought, this is what school should be. Why are we taught things in school that we don't really need? That aren't, we're not taught about emotions and how to cope with emotions. And self-belief was such a big thing for me, because after, the before and after from working with this coach, my self-belief was turned all the way up, and my self-worth as well, which I really struggled with in my teenage years.
Mhm.
And it was an injustice. I thought, why do people feel stuck and unfulfilled, and they don't know there's actually a way out. You can
Mhm.
actually come through the other side, and that's what pushed me into doing the work that I do now. And I trained in NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. I
Mhm.
don't know if you know much about.
I
You
do. My,
do,
my,
yeah.
my co-author of my book, Mike, he
Right.
does that in terms of sport related to athletes. So he
Mm-hmm.
does the NLP program. I think he's got a website, nlpglobal.com, and he works on that and works with athletes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know a little bit. It's very similar to how I think as well. I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to expand on that little bit briefly for you?
Yeah, NLP, and it's very fast acting as well.
Mm,
You probably the most famous person who does NLP is Tony Robbins. So you can
yes.
probably, if you actually see him in action, he picks people from the audience and he completely changes them in an instant.
Yeah.
Their whole physiology changes, and they've got a brand new perspective. And NLP, I've worked with people. Some people just come to me with a problem they have, and we do an hour session, and I never see them again. They don't need me. Sometimes other people need longer. It's longer coaching, and it's a
Mm,
bigger problem. But that's how good it is. It's switching perspective, changing. That mind body connection is real. We tap into that as well and get
mm,
you feeling a way that's connected to an empowering belief, so that
mm.
that just becomes your default. So yeah, I love NLP. I'll shout about it from the rooftops. I think it's great.
You wouldn't have been able to do that though if you didn't work on yourself first,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
going back to what you mentioned about schools, I'm in education, and I do believe that we need to teach a lot more the physiological side of our bodies in schools. We need to teach them about sleep
Mm-hmm.
and food. But the
Mm-hmm.
people who are, you just mentioned about teaching them emotions in schools, it's going to be hard because a lot of people who are out there, because of the burnout of the system, they're not going to be able to do that because they're not working on themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it obviously comes down then from the department to leadership down to teachers and so on. The pressures are all going down, like the corporate world, the pressure filters down. So they
Mm-hmm.
can never work themselves. If they can never model working on themselves, how can they ever then teach people about those emotions if they're not within
Mm-hmm.
themselves first? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I
That's what
completely
I feel
agree.
anyway.
Yeah.
And I would never have been able to do this podcast if I hadn't have worked on myself. I would
Yeah.
never, if I hadn't have left teaching to become a casual teacher to create more space for myself, I've never been able to do this. I could have done this over a year ago, but I didn't because it wasn't the right time. And
Mm-hmm.
I waited and was patient and had to get myself sorted first.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess that's what you did. You went on a journey yourself. What you mentioned, go back to your life coach though. You said she made these limited beliefs, self-realization. What did you realize? What did she pull out of you that you didn't
Mm-hmm.
already know before? What changed your life?
Well, a big thing that she made me realize, and it's important to say when coaching, especially NLP coaching, it's not their job to give advice. So I don't give
Yeah,
people advice, but you
yeah,
ask the right questions to pull it out of them
hmm,
from them, so they're not taking the answers from external, because this is the problem. So what she pulled out of me was I was just ticking societal boxes, like doing the business degree
yeah,
wasn't coming from me. That was something
mm,
I felt I should do, and I thought it was the safe, again, going back to the safe option.
hmm,
I'll get a job, no problem, if I've got a business degree. I wasn't listening to anything within, and that was the biggest realization and breakthrough that I had. And
yeah,
it made me look back at old patterns, such as what I was going to do when I first got that university book that tells you all the courses and what you can do. What I was drawn to was psychology, and I almost went to university to do psychology. And actually, a family member who's in that sort of world, the mental health world, a therapist, said to me, "Don't do psychology. They're really not looking for psychologists. You'll struggle to get a job." And
mm,
this is back, going back years. I was in my late 20s, and I listened, and I shouldn't have listened. I should have listened to what I wanted to do.
yeah,
So I thought, okay, I'll do business. And that's kind of been the story of my life, is expressing myself and what I want to do, and it's been shot down. And I've just
mm,
not had the confidence to fight that. I've just listened. That's gone back, we're going back to childhood, when I looked back and I thought, yep, I see the patterns over and over again.
all right. You've just brought it in yourself. Let's go there. If you're
Childhood.
happy, yeah, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
Where you didn't obviously realize we never realize this, do we? Growing up, only when you learn perspective and we start to mature a little bit, and then we go through crisis, I suppose, or we hit rock bottom. Some people like to call it. I don't think we ever hit rock bottom, because I think even when we're at rock bottom, we can always think of a way to carve through that rock, right, and get lower.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if we ever hit rock bottom, but I believe majority of people who go and do something unbelievable or change themselves for the better is because they've gone to a dark space in their own head. Even though there's no ranking on trauma, other people can go through sometimes worse things, and they brush it off their back sometimes. I can't speak for everybody, but there's no ranking. Another guest said to me not long ago, there was no ranking on trauma, and that was so powerful for me,
Mm-hmm.
because I was comparing my trauma with his, and mine was nothing in comparison to his. But to me, I was at
Yeah.
rock bottom, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so what was your childhood like then?
So I think my parents divorced when I was really young,
Hmm.
and I don't know if I realised at the time, but definitely on reflection and all the work that I've done, and now that I know what childhood should be like, I definitely wasn't nurtured. It wasn't loving. It was very materialistically. I had everything. From the
Yeah.
outside, I probably looked like I had a really good life. My mum worked. She was a single mum, very little
Hmm.
help from my dad, and she really worked so hard to give us everything, to give us a good life. And I think, as parents, I think we always try and give our children what we missed out on. But then we're never going to get it right. There's always going to be something when our children grow up and they'll say, but you never did this.
Hmm.
And for me, that was not getting affection, loving affection. So I never felt loved as a child. Um, and yeah, and I think that really affected relationship, friendships, romantic relationships, anything, because I really had a guard up. I wouldn't really let anyone in.
Hmm.
So that I had to do the work around that as an adult as well. But yeah, so childhood really from the outside probably looked pretty good. I kind of had it. My mum got me into a good secondary school, but not having any self-belief or self-worth, I just didn't give school anything. And I left with barely any qualifications. And by that point, I had an eating disorder as well, which I now realise was just a way of trying to get some control back.
Hmm. Did your mum hug you?
No, not really.
Did your dad?
And there's certain memories that I have when she did, and it was actually usually when she'd be have all her friends round on a Friday night, she'd have a glass of wine, and I couldn't sleep because of the noise, so I would come in and snuggle up to her, and she would cuddle me, and I always remember that fondly because I think maybe she could relax and maybe her guard went down, and maybe she could then show me that affection, but I don't blame her for it. I think there's obviously, now I know from psychology and NLP and everything that I've learned, she's given me what she can, what she was able to.
Yeah. But you could go deeper of how she was brought up, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Was she brought up? I mean, she was obviously brought up probably in the 60s, I'm
Yeah.
guessing, give or take.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm guessing because I was basing it on my mother's age.
Yeah.
I know we're similar ages.
Yeah.
Um, my mum was kind of my grandma and granddad were working in the hairdressing salon until 10 o'clock at night. So my mum
Mm.
and her brother were left to their own devices. And my mum wasn't really cuddled by her mum,
Mm.
and my mum did cuddle me, a lot.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know. My mum was a single parent though, and I think that put a lot of trauma onto her. And I now see those effects, so I
Yeah.
can I can relate to that. What did your mum do for work?
So my mum was a mental health therapist.
Oh,
And she actually, my life ended up being a lot like hers, not on purpose, but it's funny how we do unconsciously mirror our
mm,
parents.
mirror neurons.
So my mum was, do you think, yeah, you see that too? Sorry.
With me and my mum, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear what you said there. Sorry,
I said
Andrew.
mirror neurons. When you mirror things in life, even just
Yeah.
things like when you're in a meeting, I might mirror you to a certain
Mm-hmm.
point to
Mm-hmm.
give to show empathy or
Yeah.
be, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, my mum was a single mum of three by the time she was 25.
Hmm.
And yeah, she really hustled. She went to university at age 30, so did I.
Hmm.
Single
Oh.
mum as
Hmm.
well.
Hmm.
Hustled, really, And it's just interesting how our careers, our life in general, they really mirrored each other, but definitely it wasn't on purpose.
No.
Um, I forgot what you asked me.
I'll
Sorry.
ask you what you've answered it really. Like, what did your mum do for a living?
Oh, 11, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she went to university and she studied occupational therapy.
Hmm.
And yeah, she's just retired last year actually. Yeah, she was a mental health therapist.
Is she still back in Scotland?
Hmm.
Are you close to her now?
Close as in, we talk all the time. I think when someone has a guard up and they're not willing to do the work on that, it's really hard to,
Mm.
you can only meet someone halfway, and if they're not willing, but she sent me a really lovely message. I'd actually sent her a picture of a book that I'd just read,
Mhm.
and what's it called? Um, I can't remember. If I remember, I'll come back to
Sure.
it. But it was about psychology and understanding relationships and why you are the way you are. And I'd sent her this and I said, I think you'll get, I just read it and it really blew my mind. And I said, I think you'll get so much from this book. And she just replied saying, you're doing the work for both of us. And she said something like, love you, well done, beautiful girl, something like that. And she put hearts. And I thought,
Mm.
that's enough. You know, she's not going to read it. She's not going to do the work, but she gets it. She knows.
Yeah, it's interesting. Um, it's interesting. Like, I didn't expect you, based on what you've just said, I didn't expect you to say she works in mental fitness, mental well-being. That
Yeah,
kind
well, a mental health therapist. Yeah.
that kind of shocked me a little bit because you'd think she'd have that mindset, but she doesn't want to work on herself. Is that what you
I
think?
think I think it's a different type. It's more people with psychosis that she works with.
All right. Yeah, I see what you mean. But
Yeah,
you,
so it's a bit more or very, extreme depression.
mhm.
Yeah, and we have very different views. I don't think she's a fan of the work that I do
Mm.
because it sort of contradicts the work that she does. So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
very different.
What about your father? What about your dad
hmm I
growing up?
haven't spoken to my dad for 12 years.
Right.
Yeah, we're not in touch.
Before, why?
My dad hurt me a lot. My dad's got 7 children, so not just me.
Hmm.
I think he just didn't know. Again, going back to his childhood, I don't think he was really nurtured. I don't think he had the best childhood, and it's a shame. I mean, I'm fine now. I was very hurt in my teenage years and my early 20s, and I had to choose me. I had to choose to break that contact because it wasn't going to end. I was going to keep getting hurt and let down and betrayed. Yeah, over and over again.
Did you live? How old were you when he moved out of your house?
I was really young. I was 3, I think,
Ah, yeah. So you
when
never
when
really
they
had that.
divorced. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Did you?
he was very much part of my childhood, and I have fond memories as well of
Yeah.
my childhood with my dad. Very fun, happy memories. It was more when I think he separated from my stepmom, and that's when things started to go downhill. That's when I was 16, and things started to go downhill.
So you
Then
got along with her
I
as well.
love her. She's
Oh,
like my biggest supporter and encourager, and everything I do in life. We're really close. Yeah,
oh, that's really
still now.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So when that relationship broke down, is that when the betrayal or the hurt started to occur from your dad?
I think he started projecting his anger on everyone else, including me and other people in the family.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think maybe there was a mask to some degree when he was in the marriage to my mum and then with my stepmom as well. And when he was a single man, that mask fell, and I think he turned to alcohol was a big problem as well.
Hmm. And did that affect you at the time, or have you only realised that as you got older?
Sorry, Andrew. I don't know if you can hear the noise in the
I can.
background. Can
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's all right.
I hope you can mute that.
Don't
You
worry.
can.
It's
Okay.
it's real, right? It's authentic.
Okay.
That's what leading our own way is all about.
Sorry.
That's
What was
okay.
the question you just
Um,
asked me, Andrew?
the question was, what did your I forgot what I said now. When the relationship broke down with the stepmother and your dad, is that when the betrayal and the hurt
Oh,
started
that
to
and
occur?
the alcohol did you mention as well?
Oh, yeah, you mentioned alcohol. Sorry,
Yeah.
yeah, that's when
hmm
it's. Oh, no, you already answered that. You started to I can't even say it.
Betrayal. Yeah.
Yeah. What were you? Did you realize that at the time, or did you realize that as you got older, the effects of what he was doing?
Yeah, there was actually an incident when I was young, like maybe around 8 or 9, that I witnessed that it was like it shattered my daddy was my everything, I was his little princess, and I just thought he was the best thing ever. And then I
Mm.
witnessed something and it completely shattered that illusion for me. And I think that had a big impact actually on everything going forward.
Yeah. Well.
Um, and yeah, and then I was probably more open to seeing all the other things. I probably was a bit blind to it before I just saw this amazing dad that I thought I had.
We didn't chat too much before this episode, so am I allowed to ask what you witnessed?
Yeah, I didn't actually see it. I heard it, and it was a domestic violence incident Yeah. And
Mm.
which was just all, I had never experienced anything. I never had anything like that in my life. Never. So yeah, it was very frightening for me. I think I was must have been about 8 or 9.
Was that
And
with the
yeah,
stepmom,
yeah, yeah,
the one that you love and adore?
yeah. So it
So
was
he,
just awful. Yeah.
where were you?
I was in bed. It
Was that
woke
the
me
only
up.
time, or did you hear and
The
see it
only
more
time
after?
that I heard it, yeah, but and I now know that it was happened all the time.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Mm.
And does your stepmom and you talk about it? Do you?
Yeah, we can openly talk about it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a bit awkward at first when I mean, we're going back a long time when we first started talking about this sort of stuff, but
Mhm.
we're very, very close and open now. We can talk about anything now. So yeah, we have.
Yeah. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that area, or are you happy with that part of just sharing that part?
I mean, I'm open to anything.
We'll talk. Let's talk about what you heard then. What
Mm.
did you hear from behind the door?
It
I'm
was,
assuming it's the door. Was it the door?
yeah, yeah. I heard um my dad's coming home drunk
Mhm.
and my stepmom just saying, I think someone had called and she said some so and so's called for you. And I don't really know what happened in between, but I suddenly just heard anger and banging, and crying.
Yeah. And what did you do? Did you stay in
I
the room?
just cried in bed, and I was scared, and I
Yeah.
was confused, and yeah, I think if like something had just shattered, an illusion had been shattered,
Mhm. The
and
illusion
probably
of your perfect dad.
yeah. And also opening my eyes to something like this because I'd never experienced anything. I had a nice home, nice upbringing. I never had, there was no violence, so this was new for me. And it was the
So,
only time that I experienced that in my home life.
do you think that's what happened between him and your mother?
Yeah, I think now I've been told. In fact, I've been told that I was a very young age and I witnessed that.
Oh, you just don't remember. Yeah, you just won't remember,
I
will you? I
don't
suppose.
remember it, but I actually, there's something called timeline therapy, which I trained in, but in order to be trained in it, I had to have it. And you
Hmm.
go through emotions like anger, fear, sadness, hurt, guilt. That's actually the 5 emotions you go through. And each one of them, it's your subconscious mind will throw up something because you won't remember it the first time you felt them. So your subconscious will throw something up. And for each emotion, that's what it took me back to.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, because there's eight slash I think nine survival emotions, and you've just labelled what would be perceived as the not negative. There's no negative and positive emotions, but we do label like
Yeah.
anger as negative and in the red
Yeah.
zone these days. And I'm not a
Yeah.
fan of calling it negative and red because
I
we
say
then
undesired emotion.
yeah we undesired yeah. But again, if you go back to our ancestors, very essential, right? They were very
Mm.
essential to survive whatever we were being attacked. You didn't have time to be hurt. You
Mm.
had to get up and you had to go.
Yeah.
Again, I was talking about going off the topic here, but I was talking to somebody about this not long ago. But when you watch animals in nature now, and I don't know, something's attacking a deer, and it's been caught but then gets away, and the camera stays on the deer for the next hour and 20 minutes later, that deer is carrying on with his life. That
Hmm.
deer isn't upset about what's just happened. He's ready for it to happen again. And
Hmm.
he's eating, or she's eating,
Yeah.
and looking after the young and getting on with life. It's bizarre when we think about it like that, isn't it? I
Hmm.
think.
Yeah,
We
I've
have,
never actually thought of it that way. That is
yeah.
really interesting. That's something I'm going to go and ponder on, actually.
Yeah,
That's
I
really
pondered
interesting.
on it after it, and I in a way, I kind of watched a few clips of animals just getting on with their day, but that's how we would have done it before we invented everything that we've invented to
Hmm.
be comfortable, or
Hmm.
we can just get food wherever we want. That fight and flight response now that we go through, we would have had to just get kind of. You can't say just get on with it anymore because you'd be perceived as a manning up and stuff. I think we
Yeah.
should be able to express all of our emotions 100%, but we have to manage them in a really healthy way so we don't go on a spiral and go down, because then there's other things humans have invented that we can use to keep our minds busy or distracted or go, you know what I mean? Yeah, I think you know where I was going with that.
Yeah,
Drugs,
yeah.
alcohol, and so on and so on. But back to you. Where we at in the story, in the line, your mother, yeah, you realised your mother was probably, you've not realised, you now know, don't you, through the discussion. Do you and your mum talk about those as well, or is that a closed chapter now?
It's not a closed chapter. I don't. It's always open for me to
Hmm.
talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've accepted. We're just very different, and
Yep.
I'm very. I mean, I don't want small talk. I want deep conversations. I want to unravel and unpick your mind, and I want deep conversations.
Sure.
And my mum's just not like that. She doesn't want to have those types of conversations, and I just need to accept that. That's just doesn't mean she's a bad person, or
No.
that's wrong. It's just she just doesn't want to.
Yeah,
So,
but you can carry on having a relationship with her.
oh, we're closer now that because I've got my children, and
Yeah.
she's the best grandmother to my
Oh,
children, and she
that's nice.
really she acknowledges, the thing. In fact, I think she said to me one time, something along the lines of, oh, I wasn't a very good mum, and I said to her, that's a bit harsh.
Hmm.
She was a great mum. She gave us everything that she thought she needed to give us. She didn't know any different. She didn't know that there was something that we needed that she wasn't giving us.
Yeah.
I think she realizes on reflection,
Yeah.
and maybe now that she's got grandkids, she
Yeah.
she realizes.
That could be her way of giving back what she didn't give in the
I
first
think
place,
so.
maybe.
I really do. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's so I think we're the closest that we're ever are going to be. I mean, who knows? Yeah, who knows? But yeah, our relationship is is the best it's ever been, I would say.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Before we move on, I am interested in knowing a little bit more about your low self-worth. But before we go on
Mm.
there, your dad's journey. You've obviously realised your dad's changed. He's not who you thought he was.
Mm.
You're 38 years old. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You stopped talking to him at 26.
Mm-hmm.
We've mentioned that when you realised it wasn't the same. I think you were 16. So 10 years. What happens in that 10 years with your father?
Mm. Everything that I said earlier, betrayal, hurt. I
Ah, yeah.
mean,
How did he betray
yeah,
you?
that's um he not just me, but obviously I'm his daughter. He just was very unloyal. Not he was, you know, and he would like stirring the pot and going and speaking to other family members and telling stories and stories that weren't very nice about me that weren't true. And I actually realize now that it's for sympathy and attention,
Hmm.
so they don't care that they're betraying someone, or they don't get that.
Hmm.
Or they're in that moment, they're just looking for any attention and sympathy that they can get. And if that's saying awful things about their family members, they don't care.
Hmm.
And that happened to me, and I forgave. I mean, and it came between, there was a family member who I adored and who didn't really speak to me, and our relationship's never been the same, and it's based on a lie that my dad told. And I think that's such a shame, because he's also betrayed that person as well. So I just think that it came to a point I just had to cut that relationship off. It was just I wasn't getting anything beneficial. I wasn't getting love or, my father figure. I was just being hurt over and over again.
Yeah. It's weird because these people do eventually undo themselves. Those stories that he was telling people, they would have taken it in, but something down the track would have happened and they would have seen the light, I suppose, at some point. You've just said he betrayed that person as well. So
Mhm.
that there's an example. Did he lose other connection and relationships as well
I
outside of
think
you and that
I
person?
think he's lost everyone that was close to him. Yeah, I don't think there's really anyone. I think he's probably very lonely.
Mm.
He has 7 children. One of them speaks to him, and the one that speaks to him is in America. Um, and yeah, 10 grandkids who he doesn't know. So,
There you go then. Again, there's proof that these people undo themselves.
mm.
Is he narcissistic?
um, probably. I've never really. really went into that or thought much about that, but probably.
You're going to ponder about that now, aren't you?
Hmm.
I can see it in your eyes. You're going to go away and do loads of research on it now.
Yeah.
Okay, well, or did he have any empathy?
No. No.
Was he materialistic?
I wouldn't say majorly. Not majorly.
I don't know if this is the right word, self-gratification. Does he look himself in the mirror and I'm the
I
man?
mean, my dad, he was a very handsome man. He was a ladies' man. He did
Mm-hmm.
look after himself very well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think until later years, but yeah, I mean, for a long time, yeah, and he did, and he probably thought himself as a bit of a gangster as well.
you, you, did he do the old Glasgow kiss?
Probably.
For, for those who don't know a Glasgow kiss, I think that's a headbutt, is it? Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah, I think you
Yeah,
don't even
something
know.
like that. Yeah.
So, okay, how did you cut him off then?
I just one day I actually received a text message, which I was with my brother, and he got the same text message,
Oh,
and I don't, well, I never replied. We actually laughed. It got to the point. It was actually on Christmas Day. He ruined my 21st birthday as well. That's another story. But
oh,
yeah, I got this
we'll come
message
back to
on
that.
Christmas Day. I was with my brother, and we actually looked at it and we laughed. It wasn't very nice, and because it had got to that point, he couldn't hurt us anymore. And rather than a nice message, just or Merry Christmas,
Mm.
you
What did it
get, and
say?
it was it wasn't any. It was something like. We were actually so my dad had a flat. He lived with his girlfriend at the time, and he had a flat, and I had just come back from America. Um, my brother had the flat. He was staying in the flat. I just come back from traveling America. This is before I had children, and I was staying there for a couple of weeks. And I remember we got this message on Christmas Day, and it said, "Get out of my house." It's something, maybe something more than that, but basically just don't, like, I don't want you there. Get in, completely out of the blue. Not no reason to receive this message.
Oh,
Just like I think just trying to ruin our Christmas Day. And it didn't. And I just thought, I'm done. That's fine. I will leave your house and I'm done.
so you got your things, you left.
Yeah.
Was
Yep.
he around when you did that?
No, he didn't stay there anyway. It was my brother was staying in
Oh,
the flat.
so why did he say get out of my flat then?
I honestly think it was the only thing he could think of, and
Yeah, you're running
to
out of ideas to hurt or get some form of
it
attention
was
on
just
him, right?
how can I hurt them in the most awful way on Christmas Day, and that's what he did.
So there was never a cut off. You never cut him off by saying I'm never speaking to you again. You just never
No,
replied,
he
and
would
he never
probably.
texted you again after that.
No, he did try. He did try and
Ah,
contact me after that, and I was
did
not. By
did
that
you
point,
change your
it was
number?
sorry.
Did you
I
change your
did.
number?
I did. I did change my number. Yeah,
How do you know he tried to contact you?
I didn't change my number straight away. He tried
Ah,
to contact and he left voicemails
mm-hmm.
and messaged, and I think it was about a year. It was about a year later, and maybe a bit more. And I had my son. My son was a newborn, and I got a message. A New Year message saying Happy New Year to you. His my um their dad, my children's dad, and he said the wrong name for my son. He actually said my sister's child. So he
Ah,
didn't know. He didn't know my
yeah,
son's name.
yeah.
And then yeah, I changed my number after that.
How do you think he found out that you had a boy?
He, I think through family. He would have known through family.
Oh, so there was still communication on the other
Yeah,
side.
that he would have saw somebody would have posted something and he would have saw
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And were you all in the local area? Were you relatively quite close in terms of
Hmm.
living? Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. It's quite hard to avoid somebody when you live close, though, right?
Yeah, and I actually saw him when my daughter was very young. She was in the buggy, and he walked right past us.
Did he
He
see
just
you?
yeah. We just kind of looked at each other and yeah, just he just walked past.
So,
It was very very strange. Like we were strangers. It was really, but I hadn't spoken to him for years by this point.
yeah, wow. You think, I don't know, it's hard, isn't it? It's hard to even imagine being in his shoes when his daughter's walking past with his grandchildren. He's probably maybe
I,
embarrassed. I don't know.
Andrea, I think he actually laps up the drama of it all. I think
Yeah,
it's a drama for him.
sounds like it.
Yeah.
How did he destroy your 21st?
Oh. So he so his I we have quite a big family on his side of the family, and I said to him, I had the invitations for his side of the family, and it would have been easier because he was near them and saw them more or could pass them around more.
Hmm.
And I said, look, I can like give out these invitations, but do you want to, can you do it? If not, that's okay. He's like, no, 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 that's fine, I'll do it. And he never mentioned to anyone. He never gave anyone the invitations, and so no one came because no one knew. And well, people came. People, don't worry, people,
Oh,
but
okay.
none of
I'm
my
just
dad's
imagining you
family
sitting there.
came. And it's quite a big family. So none of my aunts or cousins came to my 21st from my
Yeah.
dad's side of the family. And I never knew this until my brother's 21st, 2 years later. It was my cousin's husband actually said, oh, thanks for the invite to your 21st, so kind of, and I was like, yeah, you did, I gave you one. And that we had the conversation, and he's like, nobody got one. Nobody received an invitation.
So did you speak to him about it?
No, so he actually and he actually sent me a really awful, he was supposed to come to my 21st, and he sent me a really awful message on the morning, a really, just a really, and I think now I realise that he obviously didn't want to come, because then I would have said, why is no one here? Why is none of my, he would have had to have
Hmm.
explained himself. So he's sort of sent a really awful message to get himself out of it, to putting the blame on me. I'm not coming to your party because this. He brought other family members into it as well, and wasn't very nice about them either.
Hmm.
And yeah, and I was really upset that he did that on my that was one of the biggest things he'd done up until that point that was really hurtful to me personally.
Sure, absolutely.
Mm.
Because it sounds like he was doing it to a lot of people in the family, not just you. So it wasn't
Mm.
personal, but obviously that is personal in the moment, isn't it? You take it
Mm.
personally.
Mhm.
Is he like? He's like that with everybody, right? It wasn't
Mhm.
just you, or was
Yeah,
it?
it wasn't just me.
Because he's
Yeah.
lost everybody, hasn't he?
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, Where did it all go wrong with your dad, though? Because he was this perfect figure. Yes, you heard
Mm.
all of that domestic violence in the house at 16. This was only a few years ago, a few years later for the, 5 years to the party. Where did it all go wrong before that? Where did the cracks start to, well, we know where it started to form, but he didn't know you knew about that, the violence? Where did it, or did he? Maybe he did, I don't know. Where did it go wrong
Yeah,
for
yeah,
he?
he doesn't know. He to this day he probably doesn't know that I heard that.
Yeah.
Um, I think that was probably the biggest what so that there was a couple of things before that, just things like, like I say, it was like he wanted drama, and he wanted the arguments and everything that, the sympathy that then comes with that, and
Hmm.
the attention. And I remember a couple of times, I actually remember my mum put up with so much from my dad, and she never said a bad word against him to us. She just
Hmm.
never, there's so much she could have said or told us when we were young, and she never. And I think she's amazing for that, for letting us find out for herself, really.
Yeah, that's hard,
Um,
isn't it?
yeah. And I remember when I was about 18, 19, and I was at home getting ready for a night out, really looking forward to going out with my friends. And my mum said, oh, there's the phone for you. So I picked up the phone, back in the days when we actually had home phones, and answered the phone, and it was my dad, and he started an argument, and can't even remember what it was about, but I was really upset. I think he hung up on me. He said whatever he wanted to say and hung up. And I remember crying and being really upset. And my mum popped her head round and said, what's wrong? Who was that on the phone? And was that your dad? And she picked up the phone for the first time ever, and told him exactly what she thought of him. And I think, yeah, I think she needed to get that out of her system. She was
Because
very upset that he'd phoned me and upset me, you know?
it's probably a build up for her as well,
Yeah, I think
personally,
it
but
was.
also then seeing
Yeah.
her daughter
Hmm.
go through
So
that.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think you were asking when did it all go wrong? It was sort of, when I was 16, it was very gradual, and it got worse and worse and worse. And
Hmm.
he probably was pushing me to see how far he could. And that's why I could never have my dad in my life now, because he'd be doing the same. It would be the same, and I've got kids now, so.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you mentioned before about your low self-worth, and did that affect other things in your life, like friends and partners
Hmm.
going forward at
Yeah.
all? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think low self-worth affected, which I realise now, and I didn't at the time, I would never have labelled it low self-worth or even thought
No.
that. I didn't really know that was a thing.
Mm,
For me, that's just the way I was. And I think maybe so many people can relate to that. And to explain low self-worth, it's basically feeling like you're not capable and you don't deserve it.
hmm
Like you look at other people and the relationships they have, or the friendships, or the lifestyle, or how happy they are, the jobs they've got, and you think, I don't deserve that. I'm not clever enough, and
hmm
all those thoughts that come in that just bring you down. Um, and it did affect and I always had this little spark in me, this drive that I knew there was more, I knew I wanted more, but that definitely that low self-worth held me back. I had to do a lot of work on that before I could overcome it and start doing the things I wanted to do in life.
Yeah, I can relate to it a lot because you come across as a person that does have drive, but that's the point you come across.
Mm,
And I think I can see myself a little bit in you because I feel like I come across to people that I've got this drive, all this confidence in the world. The things I've done in my life, I've always kind of chased what I wanted to do and have failed many, many, many times, but people don't see those failures. But I definitely feel that I did feel the low self-worth quite a lot. But again, it doesn't ever come out, so people don't ever feel that you feel it. And obviously at the time I didn't know that's what it was. But I went through something 9 years ago, and I was, this is not about me, but it's funny you said the word nurturing, because I have another podcast called Nurturing Leadership, and I do neuroscience series on leadership. I've done about purpose, and I'm taking a month off it because I'm focusing on this, but I'm going to do a victim series, and I'm doing like, I think 9 episodes on the psychological effects of being bullied. And obviously you can translate that to bullying as a child, whatever it may be. And one of them is on low self-esteem and low self-worth. And I've not done it yet, but it's just hit me as you've said it. And it is one of those things. What does that lead on to? Because you've used this terminology, limited beliefs, and you've said it in a way that it's I don't know, a theory, a learning topic. Can you talk to me about limited beliefs?
So a limiting belief is just the negative self-talk. So, when you
Mm,
think, oh, I'd love to do that, or I'd love to be that, or feel that, or achieve that,
mm,
and then that little voice comes in and tells you the reasons why you can't do that, or have that, or be that. And that's the limiting belief. So common ones are, oh, I'm too old to do it now, or I'm not capable enough, or clever enough, or good enough. These are common ones. And a lot of it is around fear as well.
mm,
I'm not confident enough to do that. None of them are actually true. We weren't born with them.
mm,
We've taken them on at some point in our life. So this is actually something I work with people. It's a big factor in the work I do, is tackling those limiting beliefs. And just a way to explain it, if you think of a triangle and you've got your top, like your surface level, the top level of the triangle is I'm too old now, or I'm not good enough, or clever enough. And then at some point in your life, in the middle of that triangle, you've taken that belief on, and you don't need to know when that was, but you've subconsciously taken that on, maybe because someone said something to you, or you've saw something on TV and you thought, oh, okay. And then,
mm,
that then becomes a deep rooted belief for you. But there's also the lower level, the bottom of the triangle, and this is the root. Why did you take that on? Because if you've got two people in the exact same situation, one of them takes that limiting belief on as their own, and the other one's like, no, don't think so. I'm doing this thing. So why, what's that bottom layer? Why did you, what's happened that's allowed you to take that limiting belief on as your own? And often that lower level, you find it's a sense of low self-worth. So
mm.
that's when we start doing digging with the work I do. So many times people come to me with this limiting belief that they have, this block, and we unravel, and they've got low self-worth, and it affects, like I say, every aspect of your life.
Mm. if you could put it into one sentence, what would be your limited belief for you personally?
I mean, I would say now that I don't have any limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
However,
Mm-hmm.
whenever I dream a new bigger dream, which you always do, you achieve your goals and then you set a
Mm-hmm.
bigger, better goal. And when I do that, a little negative self-talk will come in. And I now know that's just something because I haven't been dreaming that big yet. That's just something from the past that's found its chance to
Way
arise
out.
and come to the
Yeah.
surface.
Yeah.
But I'm so disconnected from it now because of the work that I've done,
Mm.
um, that I recognize it and I sometimes think, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And I feel so disconnected that I won't feed it. I
Yeah.
think, no,
Good.
don't think so. Not focused on you, focused on my goal.
I
So
love it.
I wouldn't say I have any limiting beliefs now, but that doesn't mean that some won't arise in the future. They will, but I can
Sure.
see it for what it is now.
You know what? I completely get it. I completely bang on with it. And I'm going to relate it back to what I'm doing right now here with you. I left teaching to become a casual teacher because I wanted to do this, right? And I had all these limited beliefs, but it didn't stop me because I'd conquered this. I felt like I'd conquered the self, right? I got rid of these
Hmm.
negative thoughts and what is, I can't do it. And don't worry about failing, all of that stuff. And I went for it. And then I started to do all the artwork and I started to get all of this stuff and started to just practice because I've never been in front of a camera before. I've never done anything. And I just went for it. And then it became real. Then I started all of a sudden having you guys in front of me, and I'm like, I've not quit. I'm actually doing this now. And then I'm learning from all of my guests. And yeah, I'm just going off now a little bit, but new limited beliefs are coming in because I'm starting to interview people like you, and you're different to some of the other guests that I've had, and I'm having these other deep conversations with, and I don't know if I'm doing it right. I'm going
Yeah.
off a whim, and I'm like, these are new limited beliefs, but all of a sudden I find myself, well, I'm here. There's a reason why I got here. I'm doing this, and I'm going to put it out there to the world, and it'll feed on to something else, and I'll get a new limited belief, but I'm not going to entertain it because I'm doing it. And I look back and I go, no, I'm nailing this. Got to keep
Hmm.
going. And if
Hmm.
I can help just one person watching this episode, even if just one person watches us today, I live with that belief. I've done the job. We've done the job, and
Yeah.
you've done the job. So me in my own journey, you in your own journey, and then us two together in the journey.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Oh, complete sense. Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think with each, like you say, when you're doing it, you think, wow, I've done that. With each little thing you
yeah,
accomplish, you gain more confidence and it spurs you on to do the next one.
absolutely. Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's why I needed you on this podcast. Okay, so you did mention earlier in the chat about an eating disorder throughout your life. Was that a result? Before we go to there, though, was that a result of something else?
So I think the low self-worth
Hmm.
definitely. I mean, I didn't. I there's different. I mean, everyone goes into an eating disorder, obviously not on purpose, but
Yeah.
for their own reasons, unique reasons. And for me, at the time, I think I did. I was a teen. I was 14, and it was a couple of weeks after my 14th birthday, and I think I probably did have a bit of puppy fat. I was nowhere. I was definitely not overweight or anything of the sort. And I think as a teenage girl as well, you are very conscious of your weight. Society plays a big part in that as
Of
well.
of course, yeah.
And I remember thinking I actually had bulimia, and I remember thinking, it's okay, I'll do this for 2 weeks and then I'll, get skinny and then I'll be fine. And of course, I mean, we're 3 decades it spanned, that
Yeah,
I
wow.
had this eating disorder. And sometimes there'd be long periods when it wouldn't be part of my life, and then it would come back. And I realise now that it was control. I felt like I had no control of my life, and I wasn't living a fulfilling life. I wasn't doing anything I wanted to do. I didn't really know who I was. I felt very lost. So bulimia and having this eating disorder gave me control.
I understand.
And
I never
it,
looked at it from that angle before.
yeah,
I
yeah.
get
And I
that.
didn't know that at the time. I really
Yeah.
thought that I thought it was a weight thing. Um, yeah, and it's only I'd mentioned to you earlier, Andrew, when we were talking about this, that in my I was in my early 30s the last time it was a problem for me. It's not a problem. I do feel I'm a really good place with it, and I needed that time a few years ago, I think. So I think it'd been 6 years, maybe not quite that much, but I'd had my children, and I didn't ever think that that was something I would ever go back to, because I would just thought, I actually remember thinking, I want to, I want to be here for my children more than I want to be skinny. I remember thinking that, and because sometimes that little voice would come in and it sort of tempts you back. I think anyone with any addiction will know what I mean as well. And I
Mm.
guess it's a bit like an addiction that drags you back in. That voice comes in and says, "Come on, just do it once, and then you don't need to do it again." Um, and I remember that voice coming in after I had my children, but being able to say, "No, no." And it was after I separated from their dad, and my life had changed so much from the start of the year to the end of the year. Start of the year, I was, just a mum. I was quite boring, and yeah, I mean, and was
No.
still carrying baby weight as well, and there was nothing really interesting going on in my life, and I was in an unhappy relationship. And by the end of that year, I'd actually trained and ran a half marathon, and I was the fittest and healthiest I'd ever been. I felt amazing. I was happy. I was out of a relationship I didn't want to be in. I loved my life. I was so content, but my life had completely changed, and I think I'd lost control a little bit. Life
Mm.
felt amazing, but I was probably struggling to cope with the change. And then, so I fell back into bulimia, and it was my way of taking control back. I
What?
realise now, because I didn't need to. I was the slimmest I'd ever been. I didn't need to do it for any for weight, and I fell into a little bit of a depression because of that. Started getting spots. Actually, started my face got quite puffy actually, so I looked didn't look good.
Mm.
I was doing it because I thought it was gonna make me look good, which it was silly anyway because I didn't need to. But I'm so glad it happened at that time,
Mm.
because I now see why. Now I can see that it was a control thing
Yeah,
and nothing to do with anything else.
that's powerful. I think people watching this will, who are maybe going through similar things or have been through some things, will be able to get something from that for sure.
Hmm.
What did I don't know if this is the right question to ask, to be honest, but I don't feel like anyone asks it, and that's why. And maybe it's my naivety, but when you're going through that, what does the eating look like on a daily basis?
But you don't eat healthy. You're because you know that bulimia.
What's not
You're a,
healthy?
sorry.
Sorry to cut you off. What's not healthy?
So I eat a very, very healthy diet generally. It's harder in the US, but
It
I
is
did
hard in the
like,
US, yeah.
but I have my green smoothie every morning, stir fries, veggie, I'm a vegetarian as well, so there's a
Mhm.
lot of fruit and veg in my life, and I stopped that because I thought, what's the point? I was bulimic. If I was bringing it back up, I wasn't going to nurture my body with good food.
Mm.
So I just ate rubbish and binged, knowing that, yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't great. So that really affected me mentally. And I had gone from being the fittest and slimmest and happiest and mentally in a great place, such a clear mind, to that. But I'm grateful for that. I'm
Yeah.
grateful that I was in such a good place, and that took me to a place where I would never want to go again.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Well, because you've been in and out of it before, what makes you think then, and obviously, hopefully this is not a controversial question, and I think you know what I'm going to ask by the look of your face. How do you know you won't go back into it again?
Because I've got the comparison now. I didn't
Yeah.
have the comparison. I had this was pre-children, so I was never very happy before I had kids. I just wasn't very happy in myself or my life. I wasn't fulfilled. Probably had mild depression.
Hmm.
So when I was falling into a bulimia pattern, and I was going into a bit maybe a deeper depression, but there wasn't nothing much to compare it to. I was already feeling pretty down, whereas I had gotten myself to. I was really happy. It just shows you that I guess, yeah. I mean, that little voice got the better of me
Yeah.
when I needed to take control back. And I think if it was going to come back, it would have been during lockdown, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I think
100%.
now that I've gotten myself to a good place mentally, and I have that, that voice hasn't come back since that time. And I think if it did, I've now got that to look back and think, do
Yeah.
I want to go back there? The answer is no.
Yeah.
I really feel very confident, which I couldn't have said before, that I'll never go back there. I think I've conquered it. I think I'm okay
Great
with that.
attitude. Absolutely fantastic attitude. And you look so happy though. You're gleaming with smiles. I love it. You do. You look so happy. Um, what you mentioned mild depression. What's mild depression? We said before about no ranking on trauma and things like
Hmm.
that. And obviously
Well,
mild depression might be mild for you, but could be severe
mm,
for somebody else, or no depression for somebody else. What's mild depression
yeah.
for you?
That's a good question. I think I had a breakdown, a bit of a mental breakdown when I was 25. And I
Hmm.
mean, I say mental breakdown, it was because it was a very low time for me. So I think I say mild depression compared to that because
Yeah.
everything, I was just very unfulfilled and didn't like my life and was very sad all the time, like low self-worth. You feel very self-conscious and you don't speak up and you're suppressing all this stuff and it's heavy.
Mm.
So that to me, at the time, I wouldn't have described mild depression, but to me now, I say mild depression
Yeah.
compared to the breakdown that I would have at 25 when I was literally going to bed at night and praying to whoever was up there to not to just please don't make me wake up in the
Oh,
morning.
that's
And that was
sad.
a really low time. So
Why? Why was that so low? Why did you go into that breakdown at 25 years old? That because 25
I
is a very
think
difficult
if
age,
you
isn't it?
don't address what's going on in here, your body will eventually scream out at you to address it. It's like, I mean, when I say, having mild depression, I mean, I just wasn't fulfilled and I wasn't listening. I was so lost. I just didn't know myself. And I think when life carries on like that day after day and you're not doing anything to change it,
Mm.
um, and I think that's what it was. I think it was basically my body saying you need to address this. And I mean, the person actually that I reached out to was my mum, which is strange because it could have been one of my closest friends at the time, but I think I was just too ashamed. So the only person I felt I could turn to was my mum. I think that's quite telling as well,
Yeah,
that I could
absolutely.
turn to her.
Yeah. What talk about the breakdown though? Was it an event? At one significant event where you break down? I know you just mentioned about not waking up in
Mm.
the morning, or was it over a year? Or, you know,
It
yeah.
was actually a 6-month period.
Okay.
And it just got worse and worse. And to the point where my mum arranged actually for me to see a psychologist, which I did, and can't say it helped me, really. Can't say it did. Actually, if anything, it made me realise my own power. And that it gave me something where I thought, I can do this. Like,
Mm.
it felt my sessions with a psychologist felt very disconnected. It felt like a robot response. So, you know.
I keep coming back to me, but it's about you. But seriously, I went to see a psychologist after my thing as well. I don't know if people even know this, whoever's going to listen to it who knows me, but I went to see a psychologist and it was the same. But you've just said about, I'm going to use that now. I didn't know my own power and I've never looked at it like that before because everything the person was saying was logical. I feel like I'm logical. So what they was telling me, I would already been doing, but I
Mhm.
obviously felt a need to go and see them. But I did need to go and see them. You know why? Because me going to see them made me realize I was doing the right thing. If that makes
Yeah.
any sense, again,
Yeah.
it feels like it mirrored what you've just said, but I've never used that terminology. And that's why I've had to share it with you because, yeah, I didn't
That's
realize
really
my own power.
interesting that you had that same experience then.
I did. I couldn't afford, well, it's not that I couldn't afford it. I think I didn't have the pride to go and pay for a psychologist. So with the Department of Education, you got 4 free ones in the case of every year. So I used them up, or 5, I think it was 5.
Mhm.
And I went and used a few of them. And I just came out saying, not benefiting from this.
Mhm.
They're telling me these robotic things like you've just said, and it's like feels like it's off a list. And they said do a timetable. I'm like, I'm already doing that. Journaling.
Mhm.
Now I don't mind journaling and writing it. That's why I did the book. That was kind of my journal in a way.
Yeah.
Am I a person that sits and writes down every night? No, I'm not. But my book was my journal in a way, like I mentioned. But so I didn't go and do the journaling from that advice. Maybe I should have done. Maybe I would have fast tracked some of my recovery. I don't know. But I don't know. I don't know. It's like anxiety. At 32, I experienced anxiety for the first time in my life. And I used to look at people with anxiety, like, you're weak. Come on.
Mhm.
Then I
Yeah.
realized, no. I'm one of the strongest people. Yeah, I'm anxious as as fuck. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I'm allowed to swear on my own podcast, by the way. Sorry to go off onto me, but I just felt like I needed to share that with you in the moment.
Yeah, I'm glad you did.
Yeah. Because this is my therapy too, right? This is my therapy too, doing the podcast. Okay, so yeah, you've seen a psychologist. Carry on with that. Sorry.
Um, yeah, and I actually came out of that with a drive, like a drive that I never really it was there. It was definitely there. I remember being a teenager and looking around at my life, everything, and thinking, there's got to be more than this. Like, I want more, but I
Mm.
just didn't have it in me. I had nothing to give or nothing, self-worth. That self-worth, it was just holding me back. But it was there. And after I saw the psychologist and sort of, well, yeah, realized my own power, I thought, you can't help me. They're it's the yeah, like I said, it was robotic answers, and yeah,
It
it
didn't
just
help
wasn't
you.
what I needed at that time.
It
Yeah.
didn't help you. They definitely. I've got friends and people that it seems to have helped for sure.
Yeah, and
So
that's why
that
I don't want to, say anything because
yeah,
that's what I mean. It didn't help me. It didn't do anything for me.
hmm
But they're obviously helping people because there's still,
existing. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. I
yeah.
completely agree. Yeah, no, I can see the
And
power in it.
I think it just didn't help me and my situation
Hmm.
and my mindset. It just wasn't for me.
So in
But
that 6 month period, where was
mhm.
that on the 6 month period of the breakdown?
So at the end,
Oh right, yeah, yeah,
I
okay.
came out of that after having not that many sessions, and I remember she gave me. I actually remember she gave me her number, well the number to call her, and said, I think she basically was saying, I can't help you, like you don't need me, there's nothing more really that I can do for you. And she gave me her number and said, book another appointment if you want. Here's the number,
Mm.
but I'm not going to book you in for another appointment. And I went away and I kept the number for a few weeks, and then I got rid of it, and I thought I'm never going to need that.
That's closure in
And I
itself, isn't
really,
it?
yeah, yeah, and I remember having this drive then. I think because I'd been so low and I felt like I'd missed out, something just sparked in me, and yeah, life started to change after that. I went traveling. I mentioned earlier I went traveling to America for 3 months, and that was the following year. That was on a whim as well. That was just someone that I knew saying she was going to America for 3 months. Did I want to go? And I said, okay. 6 weeks later, we were off.
Brilliant.
Um, yeah, so and then I came back and I was with my children's father. I've known him since I was 14. And yeah, and then my son was born.
Oh,
So yeah,
nice.
things started happening after that.
I
And
th-
that's all I ever wanted as well, was to be a mum.
yeah, and you've got two children now, right?
Hmm.
Um, just quickly though, I think we should make a pact about the psychology thing. I don't think we should leave that part negative. I think we should, and I don't mind negativity and if it's true, if it's
Yeah.
real, and this probably is. But let's make a pact and re-angle our thoughts on it. I think we should do it together. I think we should re-angle and go, actually, that's those And again, I've not thought about this until now, but those psychologist sessions, they did help us. They helped us to do one thing, and your famous line, which I'm going to use in everything, gave us the
Yeah.
power.
Yeah. Yeah, do you know what? I've never really thought of that. I've never thought that is a really good. I actually do believe that everything happens for you and everything
Mm.
pushes you forward in some way. So yeah, I
So it did
do.
help us, Karen. It did.
Yeah.
Nailed it. um, there's a question mark in my mind before we move on from the breakdown. I'm sorry to go because you did go on to a positive side, and maybe you've covered it with everything else that we've discussed. But was there a significant thing that made you at the beginning of that 6 month period that made you go into that dark place? Because I feel like there's a question mark in my mind. I don't know if there's for everybody else. Is there something there that happened of that breakdown that we need to know, or is it something that we've already covered? It's the build up of those things that went into it.
Yeah, I don't remember a point, like a specific day or any. I remember it being very gradual.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I can't pinpoint anything. I remember it being 6 months just because I remember at the time thinking, wow, it was like I'd come out the other side of something, and I remember realizing that that was for 6 months. I felt like that.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it. No, mine was a 6 month period of the event of being hurt every day. But then I went on a bit of a journey after that when they were out of my life, and that's when I started to go down the anxious route. And so there was a new, different type of trauma, if you will. I guess I don't know if it's classed as trauma, but recovery. I thought,
Mm.
oh, I'll have a free life, I'll have a child, it'll fix me. I'll move away and get this new house, get a new car, it'll fix me. Get a dream job, didn't fix me.
Mm-hmm.
Just didn't. Again, these are all these materialistic things or career paths. They just didn't fix me. I had to go really deep in to work on myself. I was reading an article of a guy who did cold showers, who couldn't go outside, and he started doing cold showers. I'm thinking, what on earth? And I started to look at the science behind that, of the effects of the cold water on the skin, and how people would class that as being traumatic. But if you're doing that, you're putting yourself through that trauma. Your body's able to internalize the skills to be able to deal with that trauma, and you're building the skill set up. So then it becomes a cellular thing. And then if it becomes
Mm-hmm.
a cellular thing, which is the root cause of everything, it then comes back out. And that's what I did. I started doing the cold showers. And that was, honestly, I know people go, you jumped on the bandwagon of ever doing cold showers, but I did it years ago before it became
Mm-hmm.
this thing. And I went from cold showers to ice baths. And that, honestly, is what changed my life. It was the beginning of me doing everything else, eating good, focusing on sleep, eating whole foods, getting rid of sugar. I dropped 9 kilos in 3 weeks because I got rid of sugar, and I couldn't
Wow.
exercise because I tore meniscus from my basketball injuries. So, a bit of a snippet, but yeah, it's just fascinating what people go through and how they do it differently, isn't it? It's
Mm-hmm.
amazing.
Yeah.
So, going back to what you said before, you met your partner, and you had your beautiful family, your 2 children, and then life started to change for the better. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when I had my child, like all I ever wanted was kids, so it was babies. And I had my son, and 6 months later, I was pregnant again with my daughter, and I
So
was
they're pretty
happy about
close.
that.
Yeah. So they're
Uh,
close in age. What would be 18 months ish?
15.
15. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, that's nice.
Um, and yeah, I was just, I wasn't even in shock. I remember when I wasn't, none of them were planned, but
Mm.
very much wanted. And yeah, so I just loved being a mum, and the relationship didn't work out, and we separated when my children were 2 and 3. We were just different directions. I was very driven and I loved my life. I loved this little life I'd created, and we just went on the same wavelength, and
Yeah.
there was no choice really but to separate. It was for the best.
And that's
And we
okay too.
co-parented so well, as well.
Mm.
We were still taking our children out for meals together and doing family things. So my
Oh, that's
children
nice.
will have those memories of us all as a family doing things. So it's nice. That's nice for them.
That's
But
important.
yeah. And I really loved my life. I was really, until 2020 hit. And I think my children were maybe 5, 6, maybe 5 and 6 at that time. Maybe a bit older, I can't remember now. But yeah, well, they're 10 and 11 now. And that's kind of when I sort of found myself, well, I've still got work to do here. And it was more
Mm.
work, I felt more in my body than in my mind.
Yeah. And something you mentioned about your mum before, not ever speaking ill of your father.
Mm.
You're doing that now, even though a relationship didn't happen and work out in the long run. You
Hmm.
guys are maintaining that family life. I know he's still in Scotland. Am I correct?
Hmm.
But he that's happened, and the fact that you're living in different countries, that would be really, really, really hard. But it's
Hmm.
happened, and there's a reason why that's happened. Is because of the relationship that's been held together, even though that it's not physically together
Yeah.
right now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've brought your own mother into your way of thinking there, not so that your children can still, because it is important that the children have the dad in their life, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Do they connect still?
Hmm. Yeah, they have phones. I think they chat all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, great. That's nice.
Hmm.
Um, so where does the future lie for Karen then? And what's your purpose going forward in your journey?
My daughter's here. Can you give
Oh
me a
yeah, yeah, of
second?
course, sure, absolutely.
Okay, it's just to open water. Sorry.
That's all right. Hi.
She's gone. It's okay. Um. Yeah. So where's the future? What does the future hold for me? Is that what you asked, Andrew?
Yeah, what's your purpose going forward now then? I feel like I know the answer, but tell
Yeah.
everybody out there that can, get something from you.
I think my purpose going forward is to continue doing the work that I'm doing. And the main factors I focus on with my clients is limiting beliefs and self-worth. There might be other stuff that comes up too, but that's a big
Mm,
focus for me because I've been there. So I also, they usually can't see their desired outcome. They normally can't see that.
mm.
But I can obviously see it. So I'm rooting for them, and I do love that. I love my work. And I don't, who knows where I might go in the future, where my work will take me. I have big goals when it comes to my work, but
Yeah.
I'm also completely open to what else wants to come in. So I'm pretty sure, things never go the way you plan, do they? It's always you take a detour, and I'm open to that. I'm open to the detour. It's quite exciting.
Our lives, I think, that message within itself. I never imagined I'd be here, and you'd probably never imagine you'd be there.
Yeah.
If people, whoever's watching this episode today, then, if they were gonna, what would a typical person? No, oh, whatever. You're the broad. I don't even know how to ask this. How, if somebody was going to come and see you, or somebody that's doing something similar to you, what would that person be typically? And I don't know if that's the right way of saying it because I'm not in your line of work. But what would that person's life typically look or feel like if they were going to come to you, if they were going to get on the phone, come and see Karen or somebody that's doing the same role or similar role to you, what would they be going through?
So the thing is, they always have like their desired outcome, which is always, they're very different.
Mm.
But they always have this thing that they want, this goal. I've had people come to me with goals in their business, but they know there's something stopping them. But that's great that they know there's something, to have that awareness.
Yeah.
So we need to dig deep and see what that is and what's the limiting belief. So essentially, they're coming to me with a limiting belief.
Mm.
Sometimes it's anxiety as well. Anxiety is a big one.
Mm.
They might have tackled everything else and they're on great form, but anxiety's getting in the way and they don't know why have they got this, and we do the work around that as well. But yeah, it's limiting beliefs is the big one, which, like I said earlier, if you start unraveling and get to that lower level, it's low self-worth. But
Yeah.
but people don't no one comes to me and says, I've got low self-worth, can you help
Yeah.
me? It's
Yeah.
once we start unraveling, we see that's what it is. And I often now that I've been doing this, for a long time, I know that now. I know it before we've even chatted, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you would know. It becomes. Is it normalized in your life? You can see it. You can see it.
I can see it. Yeah, but then you always sometimes you can be surprised, you have that conversation and sometimes other things come through, but yeah,
I should pay
you
you
can tell.
$1,000 for the next question, but can you see anything in me? I'm a bit nervous.
Right, I've been looking at the camera. I need to look at you, Andrew.
Oh God.
Um, it's really hard to from how much I know you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you need a pre-interview.
You honestly, but do you know? No, you've got, and I know that I can say what I want. I know you wouldn't be offended anyway, but you do
No.
seem to have your shit together. You've done
Oh,
a lot of the work. You've made yourself very vulnerable and open as well, and it takes a lot of work to get
yeah.
there. Because you would never have had this conversation with me a few years ago.
I don't
I
think you would
just
have.
had too much
Yeah.
stuff to work on and you're the same. You've been
Ditto.
so open and vulnerable,
No, I've always been open. I've
right?
always been open. I've always on the dog park. I'd always open up to a stranger. I'd always open up to. I'm a very talkative person. There's running jokes about me with my friends. And I remember somebody saying you're the sort of person that would meet somebody on a plane and end up going to their wedding.
Mhm.
And then we kind of looked at each other and we smiled and they went, "That's happened, hasn't it?" I went, "That's happened." And it's funny because the person who I went to the wedding, met him on the plane, going to New York 2001, just after 9/11. She's a producer and she bought me all this stuff for my,
Wow.
yeah. So she's part of the podcast, believe it or not. So
Wow.
if it wasn't for that flight and it wasn't for me making friends with her on the plane, I ended up going to her wedding. And that was 24 years ago. She ended up purchasing this microphone
Oh, I
and
love that.
studio for me to be able to do something that I'm passionate. And we were texting yesterday, fully enough. So yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, I kind of went off there, but yeah, I've always been open. I think what gets me down a bit about being open is you can see it in people's eyes. They're not interested, or they go, oh, here we go again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's always what's kind of gets me upset. Internally, not at them, because they've probably got their own stuff going on. I have to think about it from my side. You know, they've probably got their own stuff going on. They don't need some weird guy at the dog park telling them, you know,
Well,
or even closer people, you know.
yeah. Well, I think to answer your question, you would need to tell me a problem you have, and I could probably suss out
I don't,
where
yeah,
that.
I'd have to sit down and really think about it because I don't know what problems I do have right now. I do
Yeah.
have them, obviously, but in terms of, you know,
So I'm trained in NLP, so I pick up on language,
yeah.
and there's nothing that I've picked up on from our conversations that would suggest anything that you need to work on right now. But you know, we could obviously. I only just from our conversations that we've had, and it's obviously not been enough,
Yeah,
really.
yeah. Before we finish it, though, I do have one more question. You said before about people who come to you have probably usually got the awareness. How do people get the awareness?
I think it comes from maybe doing the work on themselves. Could be personal development. I think also having that drive, having that desired outcome, and just knowing that what is this thing? What is that that's stopping me? Why do I want this thing so much? And I just can't take that first step, whether it's confidence or, you know, even the negative self-talk that they probably won't relate it to that because that's just them. When we have that negative self-talk and it consumes us, we just think that's us. It just is. We don't
Yeah.
really, you know, we don't label it a limiting belief or negative self-talk. But the awareness comes from just, what is that? I feel stuck. I want that thing and I just feel stuck. And that's a word that would be used.
Is that
Um,
is that stuck then? What we mentioned before, where people on that bridge crossing over call it the making the change bridge, making a difference or a new direction in my life bridge. Is it that stuck stage? Do you think it's that the word that we use? I used it before was crisis. They've hit a point. They've hit that crisis. I mean, it might not be crisis, but it might be crisis to them. Let's call it crisis point for now. Do you think it's that point? They've hit that crisis point. Then they've walked off that crisis bridge and gone, I've got the awareness now. I need to walk on the path to go and see someone like you.
Yeah, I think people probably try and do the work themselves. Like this is my experience too. You try and figure things out yourself first, and then you come to a point where you just don't know what else to do. But you
Yeah.
still got that drive. You want that, whatever that. And for some people, it's not a tangible thing. It's not a big goal. Sometimes people just want to feel content or fulfilled. They just want to feel good in their lives. You know, even if that's just being at home and not working or just being, you know, with their children, that those are goals as well. So yeah, and it's just having that not giving up. So having
Yeah.
that awareness of something's not right. What is it that's stopping me from doing that thing? And that would be an awareness of that. And when I'm coaching, when I'm doing NLP, we just call it the problem because we don't want you to take ownership of that, of, you know, this is just the way I am, this negative self-talk or low self-worth or this emotional block. We don't want you to take ownership of that. It's just a problem. So, you know, take it, disconnect yourself from it. It's a problem, it's here, you're here. How can we tackle this so that you don't have this problem anymore? And when I'm coaching clients and I'm asking all the questions, we refer to it as the problem. How do you feel about the problem now? Because we don't want to start saying the low self-worth or the limiting belief or whatever it may be. We kind of just want to acknowledge it for what it is. It's a problem in your life and it can be overcome. And you can live your life without it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, beautiful, powerful. And I think a lot of people can take away a lot just from that part of the episode for sure. Yeah, no, definitely something to reflect on for me too. Before we come to the close of the episode then, if you were going to give, no, that's my other thing I wanted to ask. Is there anything then that you think we've missed off that would be worth sharing before we leave? From your journey or from anything over the topics that we've covered?
I'm going to close that door and just sort
Yeah,
of
yeah,
2 seconds.
for sure. Yeah, no problem.
Sorry.
No,
So
don't be apologising.
think I've touched on it already, and that is we're never stuck. And people, so often feel stuck. I've been there myself. There's always two perceptions, though I call it the two window analogy, and I still use this now. I find it really helpful. If you ever feel stuck, so it might be that you're looking out your left window, that's there's no opportunities, everything goes wrong, all the icky feels are there. You always have that other window where there's possibilities and opportunities and all the good feels, they're all there. So if we can I just say turn their gaze, because I just think it's, if we can put it into like an analogy to help people so they've got something to visualize, just turning your gaze and looking at that other window that's always there, and everything that you do want is there. And that other window's still there, but you don't need to focus on that. You can focus on the one that you want to be focusing on that's productive.
I'm trying to think that of symbolism for your life. That's Texas for you, isn't it?
That Texas was definitely in that window.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Well, I was going to ask you what advice you could give, and you've already answered that question, so you've nailed it in the two. So, Karen, thank you so much for today. It's been a very insightful episode. I've thoroughly enjoyed it and our chat, and it was such a pleasure to meet you. And I know, again, people are going to get so much from your experiences and how it's not so much the experiences, because everyone's got their own experiences, but it's how you've dealt with it and how you've come out of it. And that's, for me, is leading your own way. That's the purpose of this podcast. So thank you so much for joining me and on my path as well. This is helping my path. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for coming on this episode.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much. And to everybody else who is listening to the podcast, thank you again for coming back and joining me on my path. And I'm hoping you all can get something. Please pass this kind episode of Karen on to everybody else. I'm sure there's somebody in your life that, if it's not you, there'll be at least 4 or 5 people that you're not even aware of that can get something from Karen and our chat today. Thank you so much. Come back next week for next week's episode. Until then, have a great week, everybody. Thanks for listening and watching Leading Our Own Way. So we can stay together forever and share more incredible journeys, please subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss next week's episode and what that amazing guest has to offer to the world. Please support Leading Our Own Way, and we'll get you on next week's episode.